Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone is safe and taking care. My name is Pranali Raut from Nürnberg, Messe, India, and I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you at the A.B.I.S Knowledge Summit. Asia's Broadcasting and Infotainment Show, or A.B.I.S, comprises of the Broadcast India Show, the SCAT India Trade Show, and the Content India Show. At the A.B.I.S Knowledge Summit, we look forward to bringing you engaging panel discussions, interesting fireside chats, and interactive product demos over the next 3 days. Good afternoon, and a warm welcome to all of you who are just joining us, and a welcome back to those of you who've been tuned in since this morning. Let's get straight to our next session for the day, which is upgrading cinematography skills with Mr. Rafey Mahmood. Having worked on several feature films and over 500 commercials, Mr. Mahmood is a national award-winning cinematographer with more than 30 years of experience in the industry. With a degree in cinematography from FTII Pune, and being the first Indian DOP to be trained professionally for the IMAX large screen film format, he continues to conduct workshops and design curriculums at multiple filmmaking institutions besides his film and advertising commitments. Before I hand over to Mr. Memo, just a small note to all our attendees. We will be having a Q&A session at the end of this, so please do drop in your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Mr. Mahmood, you can, yes, welcome. And joining him will be Mr. Manoj Madhavan, who is the editor of Broadcast and Film magazine, which is the official online publication for the Broadcast India show. And this looks for, we're looking forward to having a great conversation between the two of you. So over to you, Manoj and Mr. Raf.
Hi, Rafey. Good to have you. Rafey, I noticed that you've had a fascinating career for over 2 decades now. So let's start by you telling us about your journey into the world of films. Your audio is muted, I think, Rafey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, please carry on.
Okay. So it's not something which I had planned while I was studying or when I was doing graduation. And cinematography found me as much as I found cinematography on the way. And after my graduation, I was looking for something to do. So one of the options for me, something which I was interested in, was journalism. So I had joined a mass communication course in Jamia, New Delhi. And that course was actually not a journalism course, but like a mass communication course with a lot of electronic media. And so I discovered photography was something to my liking. And then I applied to FTI. And there I did the 3-year course in cinematography. And so that's how I joined films. I had also got into MBA, but I decided that this was a more creative and a better profession for me. So I came along into this. And when I was doing photography, there was something very, very magnetic about it, that you could spend hours doing photography and, time wouldn't pass. I would stand in New Delhi on the India Gate, taking pictures day and night, or some other place, and time would just pass by. So it was, something which you could be passionate about. And so I found my way into photography. And then the larger world of cinema opened up at Film Institute, which was also very, very rewarding.
Perfect. So, excuse me. So you must have seen the era of Kodak, Fuji, and then the transition to the digital camera and segment. So film technology has undergone major changes. So what is your take now on these changing trends from shooting with Kodak and now with the digital cameras?
So it is, see, I feel very, very happy, Manoj, that, like you also, we have seen such a huge transition. Sometimes when I sit with my friends with whom I studied, at FTI in the 80s, so we have seen a drastic, revolutionary change, unspeakable change, because when we were students, we were shooting not on Kodak or Fuji. We were shooting on a stock which you may not even know, called the Orvo black and white stock, which had just the speed of 100 ASA. and it was developed in the FTI lab itself. So we started working with a technology which was, let's say, the technology of 1930s. And we worked with the cameras which also were discovered just before the World War in Germany, the Ariflex cameras. So we started from there. And then, of course, then the film stock started developing when, when we came out of the institute, the color stocks, they became better and better. And it became a bit easier to shoot. But again, shooting on film stocks was very, very demanding. You, like what you're saying, Kodak and Fuji, and they were the only two companies which were making motion picture stock. And films were getting, they made two kind of stocks, the negative and the positive, and the films were getting released on the print stock. So to learn that craft was very difficult because there was no margin of error. And one had to be very precise about how one is exposing, how is one, doing lighting with what colored lights. Everything had to be very precise. And so by the time I thought, and I was somebody who gets involved in things. So, by the time I thought I had, got hold of that photochemical process of the negative and the print, and it was around the year 2000, I started feeling comfortable with it. There was a googly, a new thing came, which was called the digital intermediate. Now this beautiful combination, the primitive combination, which was there for 100 years, from the time of Charlie Chaplin or before, that you shoot on a negative and then you pass through a printer and they run parallel and you get a positive. And those big reels used to come. Now that thing suddenly changed and you had a digital intervention so that you can scan the negative, take it to a lab, a digital lab, and do the color grading and then make the print. So suddenly, like, there was a big, revolution in Bombay also, world over, that, these labs came and they were very expensive, and this process also became very expensive process, and we started doing DI color correction. So I also got involved in that, how to do that color correction and how the negative is scanned and digitized. It was a beautiful, upcoming technology. And then it became very beautiful, that technology, by the year 2010. And I again thought, okay, now, I have got a little bit hold of this. It's a new thing, digital technology. And it was, the old photochemical process getting married with the digital process. Shooting on the negative and putting all your data onto a digital hard disk and then grading and then making a print or even a digital print. But around 2010, within 10 years, see, earlier the shift, like what I said, was in 100 years, there was a shift to a slight digital intervention, which is called the digital intermediate. By 2010, the digital cameras emerged, powered by this company Red, the Red which came, and your broadcast shows also, they highlighted, and we had a lot of sessions with them learning. So they said, okay, we'll make cameras which are equivalent to the motion picture film cameras. That was easier said than done. But from 2010, they started giving a run to the motion picture Kodak and Fuji with their cameras, and Sony, Ariflex, and Red, Panasonic. They all started making digital cameras, and that was such a huge revolution that by 2014, it was wiped out from India. And by 2012, I had shot my last 35mm film. So something which I had learned, and that's how, that's good for me also, that, I could be adaptive, and I've learned so much. And this new technology came, that we shoot entirely on digital, do the post-production on digital, and the displays also through a digital medium.
Right.
So that is where we are now. And we are at the new end of it, where the display is through the OTT platform.
Uh, Rafey, I remember interacting with Wilmer Zsigmond in 2012
Right.
when we were doing a masterclass where Kodak also was one of the participants.
Yes. Yes.
So he's one cinematographer, a famous Hollywood cinematographer who used to swear by only film, So how do you look at this, development vis-a-vis given a choice, whether you still would opt for a analog or a digital camera? That the raw stock, the feel of the raw
Yeah.
stock in those days,
No,
it had
you're very right. Zygmunt would. I had also met him. We had some sessions. So I remember meeting him in Kodak lab and then coming to broadcast. I think there was a interactive session with him. So there are still people who swear by film, but because I was also one of them, and for a long time I regretted that film is going, and I wished in India it would have held on longer. But to be honest, now I feel the difference between film and digital is very less. Having said that, I would personally be very happy to shoot on film because it gives me a certain, almost you can say, a sacred pleasure. Because what I am seeing, through a optical viewfinder, I'm not seeing when I'm shooting, I'm not seeing a digital screen. I'm not seeing a monitor. I'm not seeing a viewfinder. Viewfinder shows a digital image. So when I am seeing through a film camera, I'm seeing direct. I'm seeing a direct image of what is being recorded. So that is a pleasure. And also the film stock has something very smooth about it, because it's not recording the image on a fixed buyer this thing sensor. So it has whatever its molecules, which are every frame has a different pattern of molecules, so it looks very soft and pleasing. Now, because of the big physical infrastructure it involves, I think it will be very difficult for it to come back in India unless there is some counter revolution. But to answer your question, I would be very happy to shoot on film, but that will have to be processed maybe in England or US, because there's nothing left in Asia, I think.
Absolutely. So now, in the course of the pandemic, we have seen that web series have taken a kickstart, and shootings have also resumed. So tell me, how does the visual narrative unfold in your mind when you're reading a script for the first time? What is it that really drives you?
Yeah, now this is a very, very interesting question, and but I would like to be honest with you because there are a lot of people who will be seeing, So the ideal thing, for a person, for a young cinematographer, when he's reading the script, is that he reads the script just without thinking of the images. So gets the story twice, thrice, reads it twice, thrice, and just absorb the story, and not jump to any images, and that's what the ideal process should be, and that's what I would like to do. But I have a particular kind of a mind response to it, that when I start hearing a film or when I start reading a script, some images start coming to me, and there is a strong flow, there's a strong attraction for my mind to certain kind of images. So that is also, that's my process, some images come to me, but I would prefer, to read it very objectively, at least the first two times, without forming any images in my mind. And so that is the way how you read the script. But I think your larger question is also, what do you do with the script? How do you, as a DOP, transform it into images? Is that?
Now specifically, if I have to ask you, since the pandemic, we have seen a spurt in web series on Netflix, Amazon Prime, on the regional OTT platforms. So, and certain films are meant for the big screens, like the recent Bond films, So is there a change in the way a cinematographer or a director approaches each film, depending on whether it's meant for the big screen or for the OTT platform?
I see, I am being told, I have not shot a web series myself, but I am being told by my director friends and DOP friends that, in India, people who are shooting OTT films, there's a lot of pressure of shooting it in a particular time frame. So they are wanting to shoot with lesser number of wide shots because, the wider shots take a lot more time to light up and set up art direction, lighting and all. So most of it is happening in mid shots and close-ups. Now, this is not the case when you're seeing web series from Europe or America or elsewhere, because I think they're treating it as film itself. And as far as I am concerned, the last film I shot, which was Paglet, and it was released on Netflix. So now everybody has seen it on Netflix, and I have also seen it on Netflix. But I'm very eager to see it on the big screen because it was shot for the big screen. All my decisions were for the big screen. And whatever I was telling the director was for the big screen. So your minor mistakes. I think the OTT and the small screen is very forgiving. The big screen will not be forgiving. So if there are young people who are starting out and they have got used to shooting, for the OTT, and they may get surprised when they see their work on the big screen, on the big screens of, like even the good PVR theaters, because I think it's an altogether different perception, which works for the audience and on the big screen. For me, it's a huge difference.
So tell us something about your most interesting projects which you have shot, and which was the most challenging feature film assignment for you in your career?
See, everything, I think, Manoj, which one shoots, one, makes it interesting for oneself. I get very involved with it, even if it's a short film, or even if I go and do a workshop with students, I get involved and try and do my best with that. But I would say, there was one film, Hasil, which I shot for Tigmanshu Dhulia, which was his first feature film. That it was a very, very challenging film to do because we went to shoot to Allahabad. Both of us are from Allahabad, me and Tigmanshu. And we had to shoot some 20-25 days in the Allahabad University. But because there was such a ruckus on the first day of the shoot that the university cancelled the permissions. So for 25 days, we went, and early in the morning, we used to go and find a location because both of us were from Allahabad, so we could find some location and then shoot. So it was really like discovering a location and then shooting, and it all turned out very well. So the university was shot in Allahabad, it was shot in Pune, it was shot in Bombay. So the university actually happened in some 12 to 15 different colleges, and it all looks seamless. When you see the film, you can't make out, that there is this kind of, location is changing. So that was a huge challenge. And my IMAX project was also quite a big challenge, because I had to go and work with the crew which came from, say, 20 different countries. So, and with a medium which was very different, when we are talking of large screen, that is large screen into 20 times large screen. So one had to learn how to frame for that large screen, that if most of the people will be seeing this product in a dome, and the dome has no frame edges. It has just like a large vision which you can see all around. So you are totally submerged. It's like a submersive experience. So these are the challenging things. One film which I shot 2 years back, Kadak, it's on Sony Live now. That was also very challenging because I had to shoot the whole film in one house, literally in one over one one day and one night. So, and there were some 20 people in a room, you know. So generally it's thought that when you're doing very big things, it's a challenge. But I'm saying if you have to do you know, on a physical level, you will say, you know, it's a small, it's a house. But if there are 20 people in a house and you have to shoot, you know, in one night, the story, so to say, it was a very, very big challenge.
So coming to the post-production, which is now a very critical aspect, especially in the pandemic, you know, everything had gone remote. So conventionally in the normal times, when you do post-production, what kind of adjustments do you make in the DI? And also shed some light on the remote production aspect of the DI during the pandemic.
Yeah.
When you all shot.
Yeah. It's a very interesting question because because like we discussed just now that I came from film, you know, and on the film was so unforgiving on exposure that even if you made a small mistake, you know, which was of half a stop, you know, it would show up in the print finally. Half stop was major. Good camera work was good because it was considered consistent, and it didn't have that half stop of you know, exposure error also over scene or over the entire length of the film. So I came from that background, so I was very precise in my exposures and in my color correction, you know, how the color of each light should be. So I was very, very precise because I was really trying to get hold of the craft of shooting motion picture film and trying to get control over it. So when and I was also, when we were making prints, you know, when you were taking your negative to the printer, you know, in the old lab, like the ad labs or the earlier film lab, so the grader would immediately tell you, the person, you know, he would immediately tell you that the exposure is good or not.
Right.
Because the if you made a slight mistake in the exposure, the print would not look so good. So I had complete control over my exposure. Now, when we came to the DI, so, you know, I carried that over. I found ways, you know, that the same kind of control which I had, you know, in the photochemical process that I have in my DI. And when it came to shooting on digital cameras like Alexa or Red or Sony, you know, it has become much more easier for me. You know, I can concentrate. I don't have to think about exposure. I have to, you know, think of other things about lighting and the mood. You know, much more different issues because I have a total control. I know okay, what I'm seeing on the set on the monitor is what I will see finally in the grading room. So at least my though I spend a good amount of time in the DI, my film, when it goes, you know, when it goes to Red Chilies, and I work with this grader Tushar Jadhav, he also says that your work is already, it looks like a digital color correction has been done. That's because I have fixed everything on the set, and that is because of my film background, you know, because there you needed to do everything. Now it's another matter that for certain sequences I want to change it totally. I want to give a period look, or I want to enhance it with tools which are just tools belonging to the DI, that I want to put some blues in the shadows and some warm in the highlight, you know, do things which can only be done, which cannot be done in the lighting on the set. But for the rest, I complete everything on the shoot. And now I understand this may be very difficult for the a new camera person, because they have not come through that rigor and they don't perhaps need to do this. But if you can have that kind of control on the set, you know, it's a huge benefit, you know. That's why, you know, work can look very consistent and you have a lot of control and you can, you know, focus on other things. So the color correction today which we do is is very pleasurable for me, because then I spend time just doing minor adjustments, and so that it looks very polished, and it looks very consistent and very pleasing. I don't have to do big things there.
Interesting. So when it comes to lighting, what is the kind of lighting you use for your movie shoots?
Yeah. See, all kinds of lights we will use depending on the project, So one important thing which just when you told me we should talk about, so for a young viewer, is to distinguish between technology and craft. Technology, like what we are saying, will keep changing. Craft will not change. It may change a bit, craft is something like if you want to make somebody look depressed, because he got some bad news in a scene, how do you do the lighting of that? Now, it doesn't require technology. It requires craft from you. You can use some technology. You can use different kinds of, solar panels or sky panels, or, but it requires a craft, how to put your lights so that, the room looks, of a particular kind. So how you control light, how do you use light? That's a question of craft. How do you use shots to, show emotion? That is craft. So I use all kind of lights, but the biggest thing which has helped me now is the coming of digitally controlled lights, which have made my work much easier. Like what I was telling you earlier, that we used to control. The main problem is to control the color of lights, which I used to face. And we had to put very expensive gels, gels from Roscoe or Lee, and they used to be very expensive and cumbersome, and they would make a lot of sound. Now, the sky panels and the orbiter, there's a new light which has ARRI has introduced. These two lights I find very, very helpful, especially in indoors, because everything can be digitally controlled. You want a slight yellowish tint, you can do that. You want it to be very warm, like the sunset at 6 o'clock in the evening, you can do that. And all that, you can program from your phone also. So it has become very flexible and easy to light has become very flexible and easy to control. Not only digitally, even when we came, there used to be like very, very huge contraptions to put the light on the ceiling. Now all those things have become, even the mechanical, the physics of motion picture industry have improved a lot apart from the digital technology. So all that has made things much, much easier. But I think the coming of digital technology for controlling light, that has really, really, really helped in getting precise and easy control over my lighting.
When we talk of famous directors like Mani Ratnam or Guru Dutt, they were famous for how they use the natural light in their films, So how does that come about, How much of a difference does that make in terms of, enlightening a particular scene?
Yeah, see, that's a very interesting question. And you're right, because I think Guru Dutt was maybe the first person, maybe there could have been others also, who was very precise about using light, and who gave a lot of importance, to the use of light. Even Mani Ratnam, he has also made it very important. But what you are saying, how to make light look natural, that's a question of, again, a question of craft, that you have to see how actually natural light behaves, that if there's a small sun patch coming into the room, how it is bouncing from the floor, a little bit from the bed cover, some light is coming from the window, and how you will replicate that.
Right.
So it's a question of craft, that you first you observe, and then you find ways. Now, if you are shooting in a studio, you will have to somehow make the scene look as if, you know, that sunlight is coming and falling on a little bit on the floor, little bit on the bed cover, you know, and giving a natural ambience. So you'll have to find ways inside the studio to replicate that. So that is a question of craft, you know, how light behaves. But having said that, I also feel it's not only the natural light which is important. Like Guru Dutt also, most of he came from an era which was before natural lighting, and it was the era of you know, what we call the Hollywood key fill lighting. Most of his work by Mr. V.K. Murthy, the very you know, enlightened, distinguished cinematographer, was with this key fill method of dramatic lighting, which was not obtrusive but had a key fill principle. So they worked with that. The realistic lighting emerged in India with Mr. Shubhrato Mitra, who was Satyajit Ray's DOP, you know, for in Kolkata in the 1950s and 60s, when he made the Apu trilogy. So he was the first proponent of, not only in India but world over, who started this thing of natural lighting.
Coming to your other background, Rafey, you are also a professor at the Whistling Woods Institute. So what is it that the young generation of wannabe cinematographers should look for when they, you know, come into this career? What are the skill sets that one needs?
Yeah. So the thing is, apparently things are much easier. You know, a lot of things are much easier, that you can see films, and you know, you can easily make a short film. But I guess there is a lot of crowding there. You know, there are a lot of people who are coming into filmmaking. So it's a very interesting question. How do you stand? How do you stand on your own feet? How do you stand apart,
Right.
as you know, as an individual professional in filmmaking? So I guess for me, I can only say about myself, and this can't be like a hard prescription for everybody else, you know. But this learning of the craft is very important, you know, and that's why I distinguish between craft and technology. A lot of times what happens, young people get involved with technology, you know, they get involved with numbers and what is coming in the market. Of course you need to learn that, you know, and what is the new technology, and there's a lot of you know, hype and celebration around that. But what gets sacrificed is at the actual learning of the craft. So if you learn the craft meticulously, you know, and that is not easy. If that's really not easy, because you have to, even if you're saying I'm seeing this film, so if you're seeing a film, the first time you will see a film, you will learn nothing. You have to see a film 3-4 times if you like the film about for something. You know, when students tell me I have seen this film, so I ask them how many times. They say once. So I said, what's the difference between you and the normal and the normal viewer, you know, who is not working in films? So you have to see the film at least 3 times, you know, to understand what's the camera work doing in the film. Why did this person do like this? How did this person do like this? You have to ask those questions from yourself, you know. Why? So when I was lucky to assist very good people and learn from them. So when I used to work with them, you know, I used to keep thinking all the time, okay, why is he doing this? Why is this person doing this? Of course, I was learning how he is doing this, how he's putting the light, and but the bigger question was, you know, why is he doing this? Of course, you know, I can't go and ask that DOP, why are you doing this? He would have thrown me out. But you know, that question itself, why is he doing this? So you know, you start learning hows and whys of things, especially why you are doing something. So my suggestion to people is learn the craft and learn why why something is being done like what it is being done. That's a very important thing.
So coming to some of the cinematographers, past or present, is there anybody you particularly admire and for any particular reason?
See, the person, like I told you, when we were at the Film Institute, I was there from 86 to 89. There were no film books. Absolutely. Now, at least, there may be some 1,000 film books, in the Whistling Wood Film Library. And
Right.
in my FTI library, there were 3, 4, on camera work, there were a couple of books. One book happened to be called Masters of Light, and that had interviews. That was a recent book. So I used to read that book, and like to the question, who do I admire? So fortunately, there was an interview of the well-known director of photography, Gordon Willis,
Mhm.
who had shot The Godfather.
Okay.
And I learned a lot just by reading that interview, maybe 5, 6 times, or maybe 10 times I read that one single interview. And I still, give that book not only to, young camera students, but even to stars. If I'm last time I was acting with an actress who's a well-known actress, and she works in Hollywood also, and she was interested in camera. So I gave her that book. You read Gordon Willis ka interview, because he talks so precisely what the film craft is, and he says film is not an art, it's a craft, and you have to work very hard to deliver what you want to deliver. So Gordon Willis is one person, because he has a great clarity, to why is he doing something. Amazing clarity, much more than if you read and if you hear stories, much more than Coppola or the Woody Allen, the directors he was working with. And similarly, I find not in that maverick way, but similarly, like Roger Deakins has so much clarity, because every decision is very conscious decision. Why you are doing, how you're doing, why you're doing, what is the effect of this, which will happen. So, and they can, talk out that clarity in their interview. So I really admire people like Gordon Willis and Roger Deakins. And of course, there will be, like the two people we mentioned just now, V.K. Murthy and Subroto Mitra, that they gave the pillars of Indian cinematography. And somebody like Subroto Mitra was a perfectionist. He invented source lighting for the world. He was the first person all over the world. Even the American DOPs acknowledged that there was an Indian person. Very few people know this, Subroto Mitra, who invented bounce lighting. So one admires him a lot. And there are a lot of other people, contemporaries, and one learns and admires from.
So is there any particular genre of films that you would like to experiment with, which you feel that this is something which I would like to try out now,
I would like to see one thing which I would be very happy to do is period film, especially with the coming of new technology. There's a lot of marriage between generated image, VFX, and live action. So it would be very interesting to do, and that's something I feel very interested in history. So period film I would be happy to do. And similarly, I would be very happy to do a science fiction if it's like a strong narrative, and it is coming, with the fusion of live action and the computer technology. That would be very interesting to, get into how things like Unreal Engine and VFX they combine to that we make an imagery out of the whole thing, not only live action but other ways of generating images.
Interesting. So coming to the last question, Rafey, what is the tip you would like to give upcoming cinematographers on how to upgrade their cinematography skills?
See, that's a difficult question, and like I said earlier also, is that they should up their craft, and they should have and they should have belief in their craft. The second thing is that they should not go by celebrities and personalities. They should look, even if they feel somebody is doing good work, they should see what the work stands for itself. I mean, I can get attracted to a celebrity because he's getting a lot of awards, but I think it doesn't count. What counts is what that work is, what the person is below the celebrity, what the person is below the personality. To find out, why do I like his work?
Right.
What is it? So basically, it is I feel increasing your craft, which I feel is maybe something which is a bit lacking these days, because there's a lot of other things. There's a lot of media glare and glamour to the work which is happening.
Interesting. I think, thank you very much, Rafey, for a fantastic session. I hope some of the delegates can take back some of these takeaways from the interesting session which you have highlighted. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Over to you, Pranali.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Rafey and Manoj as well. I'm sure our audience enjoyed your interesting take on the art of cinematography. We at the A.B.I.S Knowledge Summit would like to thank all of you for logging in today. Our next session will begin at 3 p.m. So please do stay tuned for that. And once again, thank you, Mr. Mahmood, and thank you, Manoj.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pranali. Thank you.